Okay, before moving on to this next session, I would like to thank a few of our sponsors: Monsanto, Sanford Health, South Dakota ethanol producers. Summit would not be possible without all of our generous sponsors, so thank you very much for donating. Our next panelists will share their successes with agriculture in local South Dakota communities. Remember, if you're joining us online and have any questions, please tweet them at SD Agriculture using the hashtag SDAgSummit. Our moderator for the Agricultural Successes in Local Communities panel is Brian Sanderson. Brian is the Business Development Director for the Agricultural Development Division of the South Dakota Department of Agriculture. Please join me in welcoming Brian and our panelists to the stage.
Thanks, Maggie. Kind of stole my thunder. That's what I was going to say about myself. But yeah, my name is Brian Sanderson, new to the Department of Ag and new to my role as of roughly November 1st last fall. And I was asked and have the honor to moderate this session 2, Ag Successes in Local Communities. Have 3 panelists up here. We'll give a brief introduction of each of them, let them tell their stories and talk about them, and then we'll open it up for some questions. I'm not going to read their bios. A lot of that is in the booklets there, or you can ask them some questions yourself, either during the open session or catch them after. First, I'd like to introduce Chef Scott Brinker. He's the chef at Rapid City Regional Hospital. He's taken a new approach to hospital food, sourcing over 80% of meat and produce from the local area. Recently, I watched a news article, or a news story, I guess, where they interviewed him talking about his approach and philosophy to food. I found it very interesting and hope you do as well when he has a chance to speak. Next is Gwen Kitzan. Had the opportunity to meet her and her family very recently and listen to her story and really hear her passion for her family, the sheep industry, and passion mostly for sharing her experiences and expertise. And finally, we have Amy Pravecek. Although I formally met her earlier, pretty sure we've met in passing along the way sometime. Very, very, very busy woman. As a territory business manager for Zoetis, the current president of South Dakota Women in Agriculture, a past SADARL graduate, very active in many state organizations and associations, and where I really first met her name, or read her name, was in the news shortly after the Atlas blizzard, very instrumental in assisting ranchers with the Heifers for South Dakota program. She's an advocate for ag, busy mom, wife, and businesswoman. With that, I will give it to Chef Brinker and let him talk about local foods.
Okay, thank you. When you want me to stop, tell me. Don't be afraid. I'll keep talking as long as they let me go. Like I said, my name's Scott Brinker. I'm the executive chef at Rapid City Regional Hospital. I've been out there now for going up on 5 years. I've been doing what I've been doing for over 20 years and been in the food service for 40 years. Just every time I stop to think about it and start counting the years, it gets more and more depressing. I guess to start out, I just want to impress upon everybody, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian. I don't have a lot of that background. My background is chemistry, baking, and of course cooking. But a lot of what I've seen over the past 20 years in the food service business has been kind of disturbing. I've seen our food manufacturing companies put a stranglehold on the farmers and put a stranglehold on the consumers over the years and create a lot of the problems that we're seeing now. I've got upwards 300 beds up at the hospital that we can have any number of percentage full, but a lot of times we do have 300 plus patients in the hospital, and a vast majority of them are there based on the diet choices they've made. We've gotten over the years more and more disconnected from our food. Things like the gluten allergy that we spoke of a little earlier about gluten being bad for you, that didn't come around until the 60s. You know, and why is this? You know, just using this as one example of the whole problem as I perceive it in the food service industry is this, the manufacturing involved in it and all the additives and everything that happens to the food that you raise and as it gets processed and then sent to me. It's created a lot of problems. The marketing behind it, though not evil, is all profit driven and causes a lot of issues. So as I got into the healthcare industry, my whole view was to kind of turn that around a little bit, and you know, kind of how do you do that and stay within the budgetary constraints of such a large food service organization is kind of the challenge. And I don't really have a magic bullet. I don't have a plan in place that I could say, hey, this is step one, this is step two. It's just micromanaging every aspect of it. And I'll kind of get to that. The young economist that was up a little earlier, kind of, your word's going to spread from here. You gave me a couple nuggets that were just great. People's the willingness to pay and the food that identifies people. People identify themselves with food. This created the niche markets. So we'll put them all together. Back when I was growing up, Grandma was my big influence, and we just called our dinner table food. You know, this was just food. We went out and picked it out of the garden. We brought it into the house. We made it. We didn't have quite the health problems, and that's what I grew up with, and that's what I've always ate. Though I'm a large man, I don't have any health problems. I don't eat anything special. I don't eat tofu. I just eat fresh ingredients. And so I brought that concept to the hospital. Fresh, know your farmer. If I care to put lamb on my market, I go visit Gwen and I see the lambs. I see what they're doing with them. I know every step of the process. So that developed my food philosophy that we should be serving fresh food and know your source, know everything that's about it. The number of people that I feed up at the hospital can vary, anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 meals a day, upwards to 5,000 to 6,000 people a day. So I go through quite a bit. My food budget is roughly $2.5 million a year. That's what I spend. 5 years ago, when I was just getting the program started, I had a hard time reaching my budgetary constraints. But as I moved into this, and kind of how that happened, it was kind of interesting, is that I just thought, well, you know, we need to help our local people out. We need to get this fresher food. I'm not some kind of person that really asks a lot of permission, but I put it out there. So, you know, well, gosh, can I start buying some local stuff? You know, it's just a little bit easier to do that. Well, I don't know. Well, they didn't say no, so I started buying it. That went from, I think, 3 years ago, I spent about $7,000 one summer on local foods. Now I spend upwards $15,000 to $20,000 a month on local foods. With that being said, last month I was well under budget. So, you know, you can increase the quality of the food that you're selling, the quality of food that you're buying, and also, you know, manage the cost. Just knowing where every penny goes, it causes you to manage it a little bit more. And the niche market that people are now willing to spend more for food that's healthy for them. So the program evolved. It kind of took on a little life of its own somewhere along the way. I'm not really sure exactly where the tide turned, and all of a sudden I had an administration at the hospital that was very, very supportive. The fella up there now, I need to throw his name out there, Mr. Wes Paxton, has done huge amount of work to help us out and help the hospital out and become a more sustainable process. We were recently taken over by a Compass One company, Morrison Healthcare, and their whole philosophy is based on sustainable foods and pursuing the local market. So now, you know, 80% of my beef comes from Evergreen Ranch, which is an Audubon certified, naturally grown ranch. The beef is phenomenal. It's great, and I'd like to promote that more. You know, most of my vegetables that that I base my menu on as local. There's a Cedar Creek Ranch, or Cedar Creek Farms, just east of town, has acres planted just for me. Last week, I had $1,600, I believe, that I spent just on tomatoes and cucumbers and some of those things. Going forward, I would like to see this expand. I just started playing with the idea of putting bison on the menu twice a week, so to get a local source of the bison. I was just talking to Gwen a little bit ago. The problem is you get people like us together and we make plans. So the lamb is going to go on the menu up there. Very big, looking for a pork producer. There again, I have parameters on what I buy. I don't want a pork, don't want to buy my pork from a large facility with enclosures. I like the idea of the pasture raised and more natural with everything, and including the poultry. The big deal on the poultry is just trying to find somebody that can put together a processing plant. I don't know if there's anybody here that can help me out on that. Let me know. I spend upwards $6,000 to $8,000 a month on chicken alone. A lot of birds. That's kind of where I'm at and how we're going. I've got a huge corporation that's supporting me now, a huge hospital that's supporting us now. The markets are endless. Upwards, last year I had an extra $50-some thousand that I didn't get spent. That's earmarked for local. So just throwing that out there to know that just me, just one buyer here in Rapid City, can make that kind of economic impact. The dollars stay in state when we do that. The carbon footprint on the whole world is less. I mean, there's no downside to any of this, and the people are receptive to it. So I'm running out of things to say, believe it or not. I just
Pass it over to me. Okay. Well, thank you for asking me to come, and I hope I'm going to be pouring this at the right place. If I look a little tired, it's been a long week, and I've been over in the Sioux Falls area with the National Lamb Feeders Association, came into the Sioux Falls area. Okay, good, thank you. By the way, Gwen Kitzan with Kitzan Family Farms, my husband Dwight and myself, our son Joshua and Heather Kitzan. But anyway, I just want to give such a big shout out to South Dakota agriculture. When you have people from all over the United States coming to South Dakota for education, that says an awful lot. When we toured, took all these young people up to SDSU, listened to what they were doing. It's a great phenomenon what's happening out there. Mountain States Lamb is coming up to Watertown in 2 weeks. The biggest lamb co-op in the United States is coming back up here to South Dakota to have their annual meeting. So a lot of exciting things happening with American agriculture. Okay, Kitzan Family Farms, how did it all start? I'm a fourth generation South Dakotan agriculturalist. My family raised cattle and sheep all those years. I married a fellow sheep herder, brought him down from North Dakota. Everybody said it improved both states, excuse me, by doing that. And he has been my rock and my anchor. Unfortunately, he is home working. He said, you need to talk less about sheep and come home and work more sheep. So I'm heading home today. Our son and daughter-in-law, both graduates of Brookings, they're coming into the family operation. We needed to increase our income. And how are we going to do that? Bringing in the young couple, getting ready to do this farm transition, getting ready for the fourth and hopefully sixth generations. So what we decided to do is to try out the farmers market and market some locally. For many reasons, and it includes a whole big picture, because even though we are one of the top producing states for lamb and wool, where do you buy it? How, you go to some of the grocery stores and one of the mega markets here in town, and all you find is Australia and New Zealand. That is not helping our local economy. That's not helping our United States economy and putting money back into our farmers and ranchers' pockets. So I had to answer the question, yes, we're growing it, but I better do some self-promotion for our products. So we did a little experimenting. The first year we did the farmer's market, I lost money. I really lost money. Thankfully, my husband was bankrolling me. So how that all comes about then is, luckily I had a farmer's market person who sold lamb in Wisconsin. They came out here to our operation to buy breeding stock. They spent a good 2 hours with me on how to do it. And the best advice they gave is you have to think different than anybody else. You have to find the niche that works in your community. And don't do what your grandparents and great-grandparents did, because it's a changed world. You're like previous speakers have talked about, it's a new marketing system out there. These producers want to know the story. So I hope I'm going to hit the right button over here. Before I go any further, I'm going to give a big shout out to Barb. Please stand up, Barb Cromwell. She is our Black Hills Farmers Market manager. I asked her where her signage says Black Hills Farmers Market shirts, so you can find her, because a lot of the questions I'm going to be directing back to her on the hows and whys. Also, the Black Hills Market is also expanding to Hill City. Tomorrow, Barb is going to be down in the Kyle area talking to those producers how to expand their market, start at market, come into the Black Hills Farmers Market. Entrepreneurship is awesome. Awesome. So she's going to be around, and she'll be at supper tonight, so please ask her questions on how she's going about doing that. This is what I really look like. I just thought, I want you to see it says minus 22 without the wind chill. So I just, I always like these headshots in these books, and I just have a strange sense of humor. So it did say 22.9 degrees, cold. So the structure of Kitzan Family Farms, okay, and I don't know if it's big enough to see on the screen. So Kitzan Family Farms is an LLC. When you start going out and source or decide to go out to do farmers market or vendorships or anything that you're going to be doing with self-marketing, you have to decide right away, are you going to do a business or is this going to be a hobby? We decided right off this is going to be a business. So we set up an LLC, separate IEN numbers, the everything. Because when you're selling meat to the public, you need an extra layer of protection. I am not going to risk the family farm or the family ranch over somebody that has a frivolous suit. So we have it set up as an LLC. The Kitzan Family Farms buys the live lambs from either Kitzan Sheep, which is my husband and myself, or JHK Sheep, which is my son and daughter-in-law. Another layer of protection is we do have it processed at USDA inspected plant. The only one in our area is, of course, Sturgis. They do a great job. That's another layer of protection. From there, it's going to the farmers market, it's going into some supermarkets, it's going into some specialty events, and we're now starting to fly some of our meat all over the United States, where chefs are actually requesting South Dakota lamb and from our area, which is really nice because I really like to take Colorado, Idaho money and bring it back to South Dakota. That makes me very happy. Sturgis Meats, I talked to Roger, a month or so ago, and I said, Roger, how many families does Sturgis Meat support? How many families are you here with? He said between 21 and 23 families in the area. That is a lot of people that this local business there, another family business supporting families. So part of the big local food, it's such a big picture. We're going from our family, going to a next generation, going to supporting a local business and their families, and providing the healthy food to the families that need it out there. I can't remember. You see, okay. One of the parts of the very big picture, I believe in 1940, American farmers, we fed, is it 18.5? I can't see my numbers up on that screen. 18.5. Okay, in 2015, 164. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on either. Okay, 164. Why is that so important to throw those numbers out there? People are distanced from local foods. They don't know what's going on. So they're coming to the market here to find out how the food is raised and how to cook it many, many times. Instead of just, pop it into the microwave, they want to know everything that's going on your farm. Clarity, absolutely. But we're there to tell the story. So it's not just making extra money for the family, it's also educating everybody about agriculture. Now, you're going to talk about beef in a few seconds, but everything I say positive about sheep is positive about beef or about pork. Absolutely. Everything I talk about the vegetable producers and what they're going through, we are a family of agriculture. I cannot say anything against any other, I will not say anything against any of the producers because we're in this together. Agriculture, we are such a small family anymore that we have to be together on this local food and telling the story and letting everybody know we have a very safe food product. Extremely safe. And it's delicious. Absolutely. And it's healthy. There's nobody out here. I see my two guys in the cowboy hats. I like that. Yeah, perfect. You know what? What you're putting in your freezer, you're feeding your family. You are not going to feed anything to your family that's going to be detrimental. And that's the first thing I say to people when they're asking me questions. I said, I feed this to my family, and I am very fussy. I know where it's being processed. I know how it's being taken care of. I know what is going into the input of those animals. I know what the people are putting into their gardens. This is critical. They need to hear this. They hear so many scare stories out in the media. It's up to us to come in. So a lot of times, in the standards, I'm an average size sheep producer in South Dakota. Nationwide, some people might say I'm a big producer. It's irrelevant. We are all here for one thing, and that is the safety of our food. And that's why the people coming to the markets to buy, they want to know that it's coming from South Dakota. They don't want it coming from the lamb coming from Australia, New Zealand. They will pay extra for local, fresh food. Okay, just some of the products that we have out there. We don't sell just meat. We are regenerative, sustainable. Such nice, fancy words. All it is nothing's going to waste. No different than our grandmothers or mothers did. That's what we're doing. Nothing's going to waste. Regenerative and sustainable. Our family practices soil health. And as the soil gets healthier, the animals get healthier. As the soil gets healthier, our costs go down. The only thing we cannot manage is the markets that we were talking about, some of the other speakers were talking about earlier, and Mother's Nature is mean sometimes. She is mean sometimes. Those are the things that we cannot control. However, we do work on soil health, and it is getting better all the time. Just some of it. We do have housing. People say, are the sheep out on grass all the time? Well, I'm sorry, you saw it was minus 23.9 degrees. No, we do have a huge hoop building that we put up. It stayed up when the tornado went by the other day. Very happy about that. Just a pretty picture. Remember, the public wants to see pretty pictures. These are my two rocks. My husband and my son. When you see our advertising, you will not see our women's pictures out there, even though in the niche marketing that we're doing, 90% of the work is done by my daughter-in-law and myself. You won't see the grandbaby pictures out there either, because that comes down to internet safety. We live in a different world. I'm sorry to say that, but that's why you will always see the pictures of the men out there, just what we do. So it's such a big picture. But I am very proud of our state and everything that's going on. And thank you for having us.
Okay, I think I'm on now. So I do have a little disclaimer on my bio and my introduction, since this is the South Dakota Governor's Ag Summit. I am born and raised in South Dakota, but my husband and I, just about a year ago, bought a ranch just over the border in Wyoming. So I just like to say that we just have our big toe in Wyoming, and we're still very much South Dakota. A border jumper, yes. But and I will always be born and raised South Dakota, but this program that I'm here to talk about today is something that I'm so excited about, and I'm just super thrilled that Wyoming is being so proactive about feeding local beef in our school. So this is just the brochure. We have a County Cattlewomen organization, and Chris Nyman, who is the vice president of our organization, had watched her nephew implement a program similar to this in Montana, where they were feeding local raised beef in their school. So she rallied all the Crook County cattlewomen and asked if we would be interested in doing the same thing and supporting a program like this. And of course, everybody said, absolutely, 100%, let's do it. So once she got us on board, we had to start with the school system. So of course, we had to get the superintendent and the principal and all the leadership in the school on board with doing this, and very thankfully, they were all in 100%. So they supported us. We had the support of our group, and we just kind of took it to the community and the ranchers from there. Hewlett is the smallest of 3 schools in Crook County, which are Sundance, Moorcroft, and Hewlett. So since Hewlett was the smallest school, we decided to pilot the program in Hewlett, because Hewlett goes through 750 pounds of beef a year, which is still a lot, but the smallest of the 2. So we wanted to make sure this program was going to work and be successful before we added in the other 2 schools. Local ranchers are asked to donate steers, heifers, cull cows, and bulls. We started by just sending out a letter to local ranchers that we had their contact information for. We also shared the information with the news and the radio, and it spread like wildfire. And I'm thankful to say that so far, just initiating this program, we have had 3 beefs donated and $1,000 donated towards processing. So this is a local-based only program. We are running it, we're supporting it, and our community is supporting it. Federal guidelines in the Wyoming Department of Education do require that the meat for consumption through the school be processed at a USDA-approved processor. And like Gwen talked about, we are very fortunate to have that super close in Sturgis. So we have had meetings with the plant there in Sturgis, and they are willing to process all of the donated beef for us. So we do ask our ranchers for a little bit more, because they do have to then take their beef that they're donated to Sturgis to be processed. And of course, since you're crossing state lines, a brand inspection is required for that. So far, all of our donors have been more than happy to do that. They haven't complained at all. Let's see, I do have a couple pictures I should show here. So this is just information in the guidelines for the program, which talks about how it's got to be processed and that it's got to be hauled to Sturgis. This is in the brochure that we share with our community and our ranchers. And since we initiated this program, I found out that more than 40,000 schools are buying local foods for their cafeterias according to the USDA Farm to School Census. So I think this is becoming a trend, which is awesome, and hopefully we can get more schools on board doing this. I know I have a little boy that goes to school in Hewlett, and he was coming home and telling me how the meat tastes different at school. And I'm like, it does not taste different at school. Yeah, I said, it doesn't taste different, and I blew him off. And, shame on me as a parent who has already had one child go through the school system. I did not know that the beef that the schools get from the USDA is a pre-cooked mix of beef and soy. So shame on me for not knowing that after having one child go through school. So Then I had to come back and tell my 7-year-old, you were right. The meat in school is different. So he's happy to know that he's going to get beef that he has been born and raised on in his school now. So just to brag on our school a little bit, you will see in these pictures, we have an amazing FFA program in Hewlett. And that was a big part of one of the reasons why we settled on a ranch close to Hewlett, because we wanted our son to be a part of this program. The school has its own farm. As you can see, the red building there is the barn. It's also got a greenhouse, and it's a big spread, and this is right outside of the school here. So what's so great about this is kids that live in town, if they want to show animals or be involved in the ag program, the school will make sure that happens, and they will provide them those animals, and they can keep them at the school farm. So this school is doing a great job reaching out to those that have no tie to a farm or a ranch and helping educate them on agriculture and where their food comes from. So this is a picture of one of our donations, and what's super exciting about this is the gal clear on the left is Linda Wolfskill. She is the principal of the Hewlett School, and she was also the first person to donate a steer to this program, which is super exciting. Just goes to show that she is behind this program 100%. The couple in the middle are the Parsons, Joellen and Ted. Ted is also the mayor of Hewlett, so he also donated a steer. And Julie is the head cook in Hewlett. And then Chris Nyman is the gal clear on the right. And she's the one that really spearheaded this program and got it started and going for us. But Mrs. Wolfskill has talked about how she is so excited to get local ranch-raised beef into the school, and how she thinks it's going to actually help the children learn better as well and be more successful because they're going to be eating straight beef. Let's see. Oh, another thing that I wanted to talk about is Wyoming has created a program. It's called Wyoming Farm to Plate. And what this is, it's connecting consumers in schools that are interested, in hospitals, in sourcing local produce to farmers and ranchers. So when we initiated this program in Hewlett, they actually donated $1,000 towards the processing as well. So this is not, this is not a welfare program. This is all done locally between Crook County cattlemen and farmers and ranchers in the schools there. And the future goal is to, back to the school farm here, our future goal is the critters that we have donated to the program, we are hoping to have fed at the school farm. So the FFA kids, the kids in the ag programs, they will be feeding the beef that will later be fed at the school. So to me, that is so exciting. All these kids that aren't born and growing up on a farm and a ranch will also have the opportunity to understand exactly where their food is coming from. They're going to be able to help be a part of raising and growing that food. And then the school is also going to put up a bulletin board in the lunchroom that will highlight the farms and ranches where these beef were donated from. So it'll have pictures of the producers, pictures of the farm, talk a little bit about their operation, and so the kids will know and understand exactly where it came from. So hopefully, I think real soon, we are going to be able to get this accomplished, probably within this year, because those that have been donated will come in when the kids start school again in August, and we're hoping to get the feed donated for the kids to feed them there this year. So super exciting, great program. I'm so thankful that you asked me to come talk about this, because it's something that we're very proud of and very excited for.
Thank you very much, all three of you, for sharing. With that, I do have some pre-written questions to avoid some awkward silence, but I will ask from the audience, are there any questions from you guys for these three? Was that 30-minute mark?
For Amy, are these cattle grass-fed, or do they get fed a ration and brought up to slaughter weight? How are you doing that, I guess I'm curious.
So we did not specifically limit it to be only grass-fed.
Okay.
So we're willing to take whatever donations we can get, and it doesn't matter whether they're strictly grass-fed or not.
So when they go to, however they come in and go to slaughter is what you're going to have then?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Now as far as rations and that might change when they're being brought in and fed at the school. Or the FFA advisor will some input on that and teach about ration and how to correctly feed them. So that might change at that point.
This is a question for Gwen. Given that you're in a niche market and the pricing is a little bit nebulous, how do you arrive at a price point for your farmers market?
Pretty. What I did first started out over 5 years ago. Lamb prices were high, and so we set the price. I told the family we're not working for free anymore. That may sound very blunt and very out there, but so much in agriculture, we give our labor thing away. Like I said, the first year I lose money because I was not at the box. We set the price based where we were going to make some money, pay for the insurance, pay for everything, and since then, the price of lambs have softened. Our prices at the market has not changed. What that does for our customers, every time they come, it's exactly the same price. Did that kind of answer your question? Okay, please expand.
Let's take your first year then.
Yes.
Let's say lamb was bringing $2 a pound.
It was.
So when you established your price, did you establish that as a percent over market, or?
Basically what I had to pay my husband for those lambs, plus the processing, and then you figure it out there. There's also some really, really good resources out on the web through various universities that will help the farmers markets and how to price your lamb for individual cuts. Right now, the price of our lamb at the Black Hills Farmers Market is about the same price as beef and bison. About exactly, pretty much is like the chops versus the T-bones and the bison and the burgers and everything like that. So we can be competitive with the other proteins, but that's how we established our prices. I started high and left it there. So because I wasn't going to be able to go back to the consumer and keep moving those prices up and down. That does not work with the consumer. They want a pretty much set price. Where the money comes in is when you think outside the box, is we sell our pelts. We send them off to a family tannery in Wisconsin for tanning. We bring those back and we market those. You're going to see some other items out there that everything is coming off our family farm, but nothing is going to waste, and we're marketing everything. When I say I lost money the first year is because I was thinking too much American tradition. The Brits came in, some of the British, and they love to eat their lamb. They found us over here. They want the neck. I have somebody, and they also want kidney for the kidney pie. We sell all the heart, all the liver. We sell the shanks, we sell the ribs, everything. We have bones for bone broth. So that is when we started making money, is when nothing went to waste. I should have learned from my grandmother on doing that. But that's how we made money, is when nothing went to waste.
Hustle.
I don't really have a question, more a couple of anecdotal stories. This week, Gay Anderson is the food service leader in Brandon Valley School District, and she's being installed as the national president for the whole association. And I know through USDA and through many of the local schools, they're all trying to do local sourcing for vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And so for the farmers market people, that's certainly a source for you as well. Last week I was in Murdo and stopped at the Murdo Drive-In, and they are doing local beef, and they have a sign up pictures much like we've seen here from a couple in White River that they get their beef from, and they were out of the beef, and the guy behind me was a tourist from out of the country, and he was just, he wanted to know if there was anywhere else that he could get that grass-raised beef because he'd never had it before, and he wanted to see if it was that much better than anything else, and he ended up ordering chicken because he just didn't believe him that their regular beef was just good enough that he could eat it. But so it is a big deal. They the Murdo Drive-In does a great job of promoting what that is, and they're charging more for it, and it's a quality product. So, but school districts, I do some work with schools, and school districts are certainly interested in doing a lot of local sourcing on fruits and vegetables.
Question for the school program. Have you kind of had to get buy-in from this on the school district? Well, and obviously Hewlett is a very rural community. What do you expect maybe in Sundance, where and maybe more so to this point, like program in Montana, where a lot of times the beef is given to the school, but then does that diminish the value local beef is as well too? I think it's a great learning tool, but is there kind of an end game there that you say, okay, now we got them hooked on local beef, do we now get to charge them?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, so we have the same superintendent for Moorcroft, Sundance, and Moorcroft, and Hewlett. So thankfully, when the superintendent was all in, we were good for all three schools. We didn't have to sell the idea or the concept to anybody else because he was on board, all the principals were on board with all three schools. So far, since we've had such a success with Hewlett, we'll expand it out to Moorcroft and Sundance now. And for the second question, I guess we're pretty new into the program, but I mean, I would hope that long term, the school would get to a point where they can purchase beef from local ranchers versus having it donated. So we're not there yet, but I sure hope that we get to that point. And hopefully, the big picture wise, the USDA and those organizations that support the schools will also be behind funding the schools to purchase the local raised beef as well.
I got to switch my hat, so now I'm the state meat inspection director, and appreciate all of the discussions and opportunities on that topic, and really fits well with what all of you have discussed. And you know, one of the big challenges that we've recognized for decades is with having state meat inspection program is that while we're annually evaluated by USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service to be equal to, is actually the term is at least equal to, the federal system, the products that are inspected under our state inspection program, we have some inspectors here and some folks that are under our state inspection program, the products that they produce can't go across state lines, which is absolutely ridiculous that we're making the point when Secretary Perdue was here in Rapid City about a year ago that, we have these processors like the folks here from Wall that can make that product. We can't get it over to Sundance, but we could run it all the way to Sioux Falls and that'd be just fine. And we were very fortunate this year to have Senators Rounds and Thune work hard on a bill that would make that change, and it was ready to be introduced. And unfortunately, it was opposed by many of the Well, the Barnyard Group, for those of you that are in the politics, the Barnyard Group pretty well squashed it, and it didn't make it into the Farm Bill this year. So that's unfortunate, but I think, I guess there are 27 states that have a state meat inspection program, and we recognize this challenge. And it's one of the things that we have to get past in order to have the opportunity that you just talked about, where we can have local beef being sold to local schools and it go across the state lines. It was interesting that you talk about the really kind of the silly and ridiculous challenges that you have to deal with to make that little border hop for people who are neighbors. We talked this morning with Moritz about the Canadian and the U.S. bison industry, and they really just view themselves as bison people. And here we're going to worry about beef across the Wyoming and South Dakota border. It just doesn't make any sense. So I guess I'll say that again. That's totally with my meat inspection hat. No other titles attached to my name there. But I think for those of you that are interested in these topics, and for those of you that represent organizations in this room, we really got to come together on this issue. And I'm really glad we had this panel discussion on this, so you can see we're not talking about taking the bottom line out of the big meat processors. It's really important to the local communities that we're all involved with that we have those opportunities. So we need everybody to get on that train. I think it's sailed for this year, but keep the momentum going.
We'll expect you to help us with that, with your new position.
One of the things I would like to add on that, we are missing out on a market that is moving into the Rapid City area. It's already in the Sioux Falls area. And this is for the minor species, mostly for the lamb and goats and other items, is we have quite a few different ethnicities, better known as ethnics, moving in. And our South Dakota legislature and our governor, and I'd like to thank him for signing a bill that says you cannot have individuals come out to the farms and ranches and do individual kills. Means they would come out, select their animal, and process it right there on your farm and take it off and cut it up. Okay, for various reasons why they said we can't do that, which is good. Okay, I understand and I agree with that. However, there is a little bit of a market that we are missing, and it's a growing market. And so there are some solutions that I've been researching from other states, and but this is something that we need to look at. These people are coming in and they're buying local food.
I have a question for Chef Brinker. How much of a role does it play in your planning, your meal planning and menus from the patients and staff that work at the hospital?
100%. I look at availability, and as I plan, next week's menu will go basically to press tomorrow. I get kind of an update on Fridays and Saturdays on what's being harvested and what's available, and I plug it into the menu the best that I can and use up what I can get. I am contracted. I contract my beef, and so I know for sure how much beef I have available and what cuts that I can get. How that works is I contract like 3 cows a week, or 3 cows every 10 days, and so I know exactly what's coming my direction. So yeah, it's 100%. I put all the local in first, and then if I've got gaps, then I look for other sources.
Chef, can you hear me?
Yes.
What you get your beef and pork process USDA standard, or do you get?
Yes, I have to.
Have to.
Yeah, so it's everything fresh meat wise would have to go through Sturgis at this point. Like everybody said, that's it. That's our only choice. And not meaning that as a bad thing whatsoever. They do an excellent job, and I've any issues that have popped up. I'm very, very picky on what I bring into the house there. I feel I have to be. And so it gets inspected there at Sturgis, and then gets inspected by me. And you can ask them. I have no qualms whatsoever of sending it right back to them and having them do it right. So.
And I have a question for you as well. First of all, my son just spent 32 days in the NICU, and I wish I would have been in your hospital because I bet your food is fantastic. But what do you do in the wintertime?
Well, the beef doesn't go away. There's some caveats there. When I buy my produce, I buy approximately 350 to 400 pounds of green leaf vegetables a week. I don't buy that from the ground. Basically, I need that to be hydroponics, and so I'm working with the hydroponic people. I'm trying to grow a couple local, helping to grow farmers. You know, kind of is my mantra up there, and so I get a lot of my greens and from the hydroponic people. There's a little group there in Sturgis or Spearfish right now that is just doing a dynamite job. I'm excited about them growing and be able to meet the demand. I mean, 350 pounds of lettuce doesn't sound like a lot until you see it all in a big pile. That's a lot of lettuce. And there again, I'm very, very picky about what I get, and so you know I help them a lot in getting things kind of dialed into where I want it. As far as the rest of the produce, come November, December, it is South Dakota. You know, even the greenhouses have a hard time keeping up, and I'm at the mercy of the market at that point. I'm very seasonal. At that time, I'm putting a lot of pumpkin and winter squash on my menu. Doing whatever I can to keep from, you know, buying too much from out of the area. But, you know, as I got 5,000 people going through the hospital doors a day, and they like their BLTs and tomatoes on hamburgers. You know, I do end up buying some of those. So the challenge is out there to anybody that can overcome that. In my opinion, cost is only an issue in the value. I believe it exists in Dakota produce in South Dakota, agricultural products on any number of sources. So I tell people, I just self farm the other day, and they said, well, you know, where does my price point have to be? Well, your price point has to be where you can make money. Let me worry about the cost on my end, you worry about the cost on your end, and we can help each other. There's enough of the piece of the pie for everybody. So the challenge goes out there is, you know, who can give me a winter crop? You know, I'm not too particular on what it is as long as it's local, you know, so that's what I do on the winter.
You guys are making my job easy. I appreciate it.
Scott, my name's Brenda Moore, and I'm wondering, just to build on that answer that you just had, how do you define local? If there was a bigger hydroponics group in Sioux Falls, would that be local enough in the winter, or do you have like a 200-mile limit? Or
No, I don't really put any. I draw boundaries that look exactly like the state of South Dakota. I'm in South Dakota. I'm from South Dakota. I grew up over on the east side of the state. I across, so I know they're much further along. They have a little bit, you know, better growing environment out there to do some of this stuff. So no, I go all the way across the state. You know, however I can bring it in, as long as I'm supporting South Dakota and South Dakota families, I'm all in.
Quick time check. 10 minutes. Are there any other questions? Again, I wrote a few if nobody has any. One for each of you. This one's for Gwen. You used this terminology earlier.
Yes.
What's the best piece of advice you can offer someone that is looking to do something, as you stated, out of the box?
Going back to have a vision, research, put a business plan together, and it doesn't have to be a hardcore, you know, like we did in college and through accounting and business, whatever. But have an idea where you want to go. You have to have an end. Know where you're starting, where you want to be. You probably will be taking different roads to get there. Do not be hesitating to change. Half the products that I started out with or my family started out with is no longer there. It didn't work, but that's okay. I gave a lot of Christmas presents away. And that's fine. That's what family and big family relatives are for. But don't hesitate. There's going to be naysayers. You can't do that. It's not going to work. What are you thinking? You know, why are you doing that? And the more successful you become, your group of friends might get a little smaller because they're going to go, how are you doing that? There's going to be people who want to piggyback off of you. That's okay too. They want to learn. That's how they get smarter, is learning by the experts. But do not hesitate, to take the chance. What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Everything to gain. So go forward, but make sure you know where your end is going to be and what you want to achieve. Don't hesitate to take a couple roads. You're going to get kicked a couple times financially and whatever. But you can do it. You can do it.
Thank you. Amy, what was the biggest challenge you and your group faced in starting local beef into the school?
So honestly, our biggest challenge was probably fear that we weren't going to get donations. And, obviously we didn't want the program to be a total flop. And we actually have a wait list besides the 3 that we have assigned now, because that will cover the beef for this next school year for Hewlett. We have a wait list for additional ranchers who have already stepped up to donate. So, but I think part of the success of our program, I've got to give credit to the FFA program in the school, because not many schools do you go to in South Dakota or Wyoming that has its own school farm. I mean, this school is doing things right, and especially as far as educating people on agriculture. I mean, they've got this barn, they've got a greenhouse, and everybody in the school participates in that. My son was in kindergarten there last year for the first year, and he came home one day and he was so excited because they went to the farm and watched him shear sheep. Most kids in many schools are never exposed to something like that. So, and I've, obviously Hewlett's doing things right and doing a great job, but I think we as people in agriculture need to do more and better with pushing schools to do the same thing that Hewlett's doing. And so many of our schools are going away from trade programs and shop classes and things like that. And I mean, I got to give props to Hewlett for that too. I mean, we have an amazing welding shop in Hewlett that my husband goes there to play with the tools that are in this shop. Like he cannot get enough of it. They have a plasma cutter, they have a 3D welder that teaches kids how to weld, and it mimics welding and the sound and everything. Like my 5-year-olds can do it, I mean, and on top of that, they have a huge woodworking shop too. So although Hewlett is a tiny, tiny school, tiny, there are 9 kids in my son's class. And the average class size of all of them there is 10. They graduated 13 this year. So it is a tiny school, but it is rockin'. I mean, it is teaching these kids about agriculture and where their food comes. It's teaching them trades that they can go out and use. And they are just doing some awesome things. And I think it's a shame that a lot of our schools are going away from that. And so I think as an individual, it's been my goal. I've been involved. I grew up in Hill City. And the school in Hill City is going through a lot of issues right now, and they cut their shop class. And I went right up there and talked to them about the shop class in Hewlett. And even though their class sizes are shrinking, it doesn't mean that they need to cut those things out. So I think as far as helping educate children about agriculture and where their food comes from and keeping these schools involved in these programs, we all need to take it upon ourselves to be advocates for that.
Thank you. Excuse me. Chef Brinker, you get the toughest one of all. What is the biggest opportunity you see to continue to expand the local foods you source?
The biggest opportunity. Yeah, that is kind of a tough question. It's tough to articulate a vision like that and kind of exactly what the definition of a big opportunity would be. I've taken this on a piece at a time. There's a long ways to go. I guess it's kind of a multifaceted answer to the question. You know, to take it one more piece at a time. Like I said, I'm out in the market now actively seeking a local pork producer. I spend several $1,000s a week on pork. Probably one of my #1 items in the hospital. I mean, just kind of, you know, we you know, tout the whole health benefits and everything, but my 2 #1 sellers in the hospital cafeteria is chicken strips and bacon. Not necessarily in that order. My budget in bacon would bankrupt some of the local restaurants. Just the sheer amount of bacon that I buy. I spent over $5,000 last week on bacon. So, healthcare organization, and we sell bacon, but you know, bacon's good. Imagine what that could do if I could locally source my bacon. We'd have pork producers driving around in brand new trucks, just based on that. Also, the chicken industry, poultry, that's purchasing. As a purchasing percentage, it's the largest percentage of my budget for chicken, just because, you know, chicken strips, chicken soup, a lot of chicken. That's a huge thing. That's I'm sure as I put my mind to it, I'm going to source the pork, and I'm going to find something that meets my demands. And we can, you know, get a great relationship going with the area pork. Poultry, on the other hand, is going to be a tough nut to crack, because that needs help on a much bigger level. I need a local pork producing facility poultry producing facility that can be inspected. Being that I'm a healthcare industry, I can't buy directly from a farm. I can't buy something that's locally taken care of without having a federal inspector involved in it somehow down the line, just the way it is. You know, other than that, the opportunities are limitless. It's as far and as fast as I can take it. Right now, what's holding me back a lot of times is just finding enough product. You know, there again, you know, eggs alone, just the sheer volume, and you know, for South Dakota, I'm a big kitchen. In the grand scheme of things, I'm just a medium-sized fish in a very small pond. But I bought over 800 pounds of eggs last week. Could never pay $6 a dozen for poop-colored eggs. That wouldn't fly in the hospital. But at the same time, you know, is there opportunities there? There is if we will it. You can ask people that I've dealt with. I don't take no for an answer, though I'm kind of low-keyed and you know, a fairly quiet individual out and about. I don't stop until I find what I want, and so it's the opportunities are there both for me and the you know, furthering the hospital's program and trying to shed positive light for Rapid City Regional Hospital. We do a lot of really good things up there. Also to shine a positive light and to help the growth of the company I work for now, you know, but mostly to help the people of South Dakota. I was treated very well here in the state, and you know, I like to give back. So,
Thank you. With that, I think we're getting the axe. I'd ask you to give our panelists a big Governor's Egg Summit thank you.